Oi pessoal, tudo bom? Welcome to this Q&A. I'm very happy to be here with you today. Feliz Ano Novo! Happy New Year! I hope you are having an amazing last day of the year. I hope you have safe and good celebrations with your family. Tudo bom, gente? Let me know if you guys can see me and hear me well. I see Eduardo, Andrew, tudo bom? Feliz Ano Novo, András, Jacob, Sam, Roger, tudo bom? Que bom ver vocês! Feliz Ano Novo! Ana, tudo bom? Great! So today we are going to talk a little bit about the last lesson. I'm here to help you and answer your questions. But before we start, I have one important announcement, which is if one of your goals is to learn Portuguese next year in 2021, I want you to know that I'll have new classes starting in February, in the first week of February, and enrollment will be open at the end of January, in the last week of January, from January 24th to 31st. So if you are interested, stay tuned. I recommend you add your name to the waiting list so you receive notifications about the new classes. Okay, and also from January 24th to 31st, I'll be teaching a few live classes on YouTube. So stay tuned, add your name to the waiting list or to my newsletters so you receive my emails, okay? Okay guys, so about the questions, if you have questions for me, it is hard for me to read all your comments, so if you are watching me on Instagram, I recommend you use the tool that has the question mark. Just click on the question mark and use that tool to ask your questions so I can see it. And if you are watching me on YouTube, I recommend, if I don't read your question, you can just post it again until I see your question, okay? Because it is very hard to read all the comments. Okay, so thank you for joining me today. I know that many of you are busy with preparations for your dinner or any celebrations that you're having today. I'm very excited because I'm in Brazil. As you can see, I'm in a different place. I'm at my in-laws. This is a beautiful place. I'm gonna show you, there's a lot of nature. So I'm using my phone to show. It is hard to show, the screen won't, yeah, there is too much light. It's a beautiful place. It is a small city called Indaiatuba. It is 1.5 hours away from São Paulo. It's a little bit cold, that's why I'm wearing a jacket. It is raining, but yesterday was super hot, so the weather changes a lot here. Okay, I'm very excited to see you guys too. Tudo bom? Okay, so let's talk about Centro-Oeste, which is the lesson that I published last Tuesday. So if you're new here, I publish a new lesson on YouTube every Tuesday, and then every Thursday I have this Q&A to talk to you about the lesson and also answer your questions, okay? So the last lesson was about Centro-Oeste, which is big region in Brazil. It's the second largest region in Brazil. There are 3 states but 4 territories in this region. Why is that? Because we have the federal district, which is not a state or a city, but it is a Brazilian territory. Okay, so in Brazil we have 26 states and the federal district, which is the capital of Brazil, also called Brasilia. It is not a city, it is a territory where you find the government of Brazil. Okay? Feliz Ano Novo, Daryl, Dorantes, Ala, muito bom, Nancy. Okay, guys, so I would like to know, do you remember the names of these states of the Centro-Oeste? Centro-Oeste, you could translate as Midwest or Central West. So what are the states? Muito bom. So Margot is saying Mato Grosso. Muito bom. Mato Grosso is one of the states. It is more to the north of the region. What is the other one? There is one that is the same name, but then we have Mato Grosso do Sul. So we have two Mato Grossos, Mato Grosso and Mato Grosso do Sul, which is in the south, and Goiás. Goiás is the other state. And then we have the federal district, Distrito Federal. So Juan is comparing Brasilia with Washington, D.C. Yes, that's a very good comparison. Então, Goiás, Mato Grosso do Sul e o Distrito Federal. Muito bom! You guys did your homework. Excelente! Excelente! So in the video, I talk a little bit about the culture. There's a large influence from the indigenous people because they have a large indigenous park in Mato Grosso called Parque Nacional do Xingu. It's a huge reservation, indigenous reservation, but this area is very diverse. There is a lot of influence from the neighboring countries and also influence from the south. It is a very diverse area, and there is a lot of forests in this area too, especially Mato Grosso do Sul. There's the big forest called Pantanal. Pantanal, it's beautiful. I've been there many years ago. It's so beautiful. There are so many animals, so much nature. I highly recommend that you go to Pantanal someday. If you need indications, if you're planning to go to Pantanal, I can recommend a farm, a family farm that I know that is very, very good. Okay, so you have any questions about the lesson or any questions about Portuguese, let me know. I'm here to help you. So let's use this time to help you with your Portuguese as well. So this lesson was not specifically about Portuguese. It was more about Brazilian culture and geography and a little bit of history. But watching these kind of lessons also help you a lot with your Portuguese because you can get a lot of vocabulary, right? Useful vocabulary that we do use in Brazil a lot. So if you have not watched the lessons, I published 5 lessons about the 5 main regions of Brazil. If you have not watched yet, I recommend you do. You'll learn a lot about Brazil and also a lot of vocabulary, useful vocabulary, okay? Muito bom. Yeah, so Juan is talking about the novela. We had a famous telenovela in Brazil called Pantanal. This is so old. I think I was a child. It was in the 80s or 90s, I'm not sure. It was a very cool telenovela. I liked it. A lot of animals and nature. It was nice. Okay, so I have a question here from Margus. This is a very interesting question. Perder tempo e perder hora é a mesma coisa? No, the meaning is different. So perder tempo means to waste time. So you're wasting your time, you're doing something that's not productive, that's not good, that's not nice, you're wasting your time, você está perdendo tempo. And perder hora is when you are late. You lost the time. I'm not so sure if you say that in English. So when you lose the time and you lose the time of your class, or you wake up late, you can say, perdi a hora. Woke up late, I didn't listen to the alarm, perdi a hora. So perder hora is when you're late for something. Perder tempo is when you're spending time with something that is not productive, not good. Very good question, Margus. The meaning is very, very different. Yes, the president lives in Brasilia. Yes. So that's where the president lives and where most of the federal representatives live as well. Muito bom. Qual idioma mais parece português? I think the language that is more similar to Portuguese would be Spanish. I think so. All Romance languages have some similarities, but like Portuguese and French, they are very different. The pronunciation is completely different. It's hard to understand. You cannot speak with French people if you don't study French. But Spanish and Portuguese, they're so similar that you could actually have a conversation. I speak Portuguese. I have a lot of friends from Argentina. Usually when we talk, I speak Portuguese and they speak Spanish, and it's okay. It's a normal conversation between us. We can understand each other. Each one is speaking your own language. Feliz Ano Novo, Yiming. Okay, looking for more questions, guys. So what were the formal capital cities of Brazil? So this is a good question. I talk a little bit about this in the video. So Brasilia was not the first capital. Brasilia is a very new city. It was built in the 1960s. Actually, it was inaugurated in 1960 and it was built in the 50s. It is very new, so that's interesting. So people from Brasilia, they don't have like one specific accent because people went from other places to Brasilia, right? So before Brasilia, the capital of Brazil was Rio de Janeiro. Rio de Janeiro for a while, and then before that, Salvador. Salvador in Bahia was the first capital of Brazil. So we have three capitals so far. Salvador in Bahia was the first one for a long time, then Rio de Janeiro, then Brasilia. Brasilia was built to be the capital of Brazil. Very good questions. Oh, so this is a good question about the word já. This word is interesting, can be used in many different ways in Portuguese. So you said the sentence, já Brasília não tem uma culinária típica. I'm familiar with já meaning a number of things, but how are you using here? You translate it as in the other hand. So yes, so in this context, já has this meaning of on the other hand. There are other ways that you could say on the other hand in Portuguese. You could say por outro lado. Por outro lado means on the other side. So we don't say pela outra mão. We don't say that. We don't say the phrase on the other hand in Portuguese. It does not exist. We do have the phrase por outro lado. But you can also say the way that I said it, já Brasília. In this case, you place the word já in the beginning of the sentence. And it has the same meaning, right? I'm doing a counter position, right? I'm saying, oh, on the other hand, another way of talking about this, já Brasília não tem uma culinária típica. So it has the same meaning of on the other hand. I know that it's confusing because já also can mean yet or already, depending on the case. So it all depends on the context. Very good question, Jacob. I have no idea where the accent from Bolsonaro is. No idea. Muito bom. So why it wasn't clear to me why they moved to Rio, the capital moved to Rio de Janeiro for several reasons. In the beginning, Brazil, the most important economy of Brazil was in the north and northeast because of the exploration and the plantations during the colonization of Brazil. All the plantations were in the north, so that's why northeast, right? Especially northeast. So that's why the capital of Brazil was in Salvador. But then, after a while, after a couple of centuries, we started having plantations of coffee in the southeast. So this is one of the reasons. Also, there is a very interesting story about the Portuguese court that moved to Brazil. And they lived in Rio de Janeiro for a while. So when they lived in Rio de Janeiro was actually not only the capital of Brazil, but the capital of Portugal for a while. That's very interesting, right? So it was the capital of the Portugal and Brazil kingdom. So for a while, Brazil was the main place of the Portugal kingdom because the royal family lived in Brazil for a while. And during that time, Rio de Janeiro was the capital. So these two main reasons that they moved the capital to Rio de Janeiro. Muito bom. I'm not saying the dates because I'm terrible with dates. So we can, you can look for the dates easily online. Você já esteve em Brasília? Yes, I've been to Brasília a couple of times. But I'm not very familiar with the region. I have some friends from there. It's a very beautiful city with all the architecture. Have you guys heard of Oscar Niemeyer? He's a great architect and he has amazing things made in Brazil. But not only in Brazil, he has a lot of artwork outside Brazil. One of his works in the U.S. is one of the buildings in UN in New York. It was built by Oscar Niemeyer. So Brasilia is very nice. One of the reasons Brasilia is a beautiful city is because of his work. Very good. What else, guys? More questions? Qual é o significado da palavra né? So this is a fun question, Ratish. Né means it is a short for não é, isn't it? Não é, isn't it? However, we not always use the word né in this context. Sometimes many people use it as a feeling word, so you just say it all the time and doesn't mean anything. So it's just like in English we say like all the time. It doesn't really mean anything. It's just a feeling word. Né also works as a feeling word, doesn't mean anything most of the time, but the origin of the word is the contraction of the words não é, which means isn't it? Né, não é? Yes. Looking for more questions, guys. Yes, you could say né in this sense, right? Né, isn't it? Right? All right. But not always. A lot of people say né like all the time. It's funny. It's interesting. Okay, guys, looking for more questions. Okay. So one more question from Jacob. I'm familiar with tanto quanto being used for comparison, such ele lê tanto quanto eu, but I've also seen the sentence tanto ele quanto Pamela começam a rir. Yeah, these two words are used exactly in these two contexts. These are good examples, Jacob. So you could use the words together, tanto quanto, like as much as, right? So ele lê tanto quanto eu. It means he reads as much as I read, as much as me. But also it could also mean both, right? So tanto ele quanto Pamela, so começaram a rir, like both started laughing. So yeah, so these examples are perfect. So yeah, in the second case, you could translate as both. So here meaning like he and her started laughing. So yeah, you could translate as both. Very good examples, Jacob. Looking for more questions, guys. Do you like sertanejo? I confess I'm not a fan of música sertaneja. I'm not. But it is very, very popular in Brazil. So there are many duets, right? Duos, sertanejo. It is very, very popular in Brazil. So it's part of our culture. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I used to listen to it when I was a kid because it was always playing everywhere. So I can recognize a lot of songs from the 90s, especially. So Uche has an interesting question. What do you think of Tropa de Elite? Is it a real depiction of Rio? Well, it is a real depiction of one reality of Rio, not entirely Rio. Rio is not a war zone. So don't be afraid of going to Rio. If you go to Rio, you're going to have an amazing time. Of course, there is a lot of organized crime. It is a huge problem, a social problem in Brazil, not only in Rio, especially in Rio, but not only in Rio, everywhere. So yes, it is very realistic, but it's not like that everywhere. So you're not going to, so don't worry. Just if you go to Rio, of course, be careful. If you go to, don't be careful to not go to dangerous places. So go to places that are, people around. Don't go out alone. Go out with people that you know. Do your research before you go, and you'll be fine. It is a perfectly safe place as long as you are aware of the problems and you be careful. Okay, so don't be afraid of going to Rio. It is not like that. This is just one of the realities, not all the reality. Okay, Rio is an amazing place. It's a magical place. I highly recommend you go to Rio. Muito bom. So which series that have different sotaques of Brazil do you recommend? Oh, that's interesting. Usually the series, they have so many different accents. I highly recommend the Coisa Mais Linda, Most Beautiful Thing. I think they translated as Girl from Ipanema on Netflix. It is, they have a beautiful accent from Rio and also São Paulo. The main character is like actually from São Paulo. And they don't say a lot of slangs, so it's easy to understand. It's not too difficult to understand. The one Tropa de Elite is a movie. They are from Rio de Janeiro, so the accent's from Rio de Janeiro, and they use a lot of slangs and harsh words. So it's more difficult to understand. Some web series, they are very difficult to understand. Maybe people in the comments, you could recommend some series that have different accents to Juan. Okay. Looking for more comments and questions, guys. Qual é a minha cidade favorita no Brasil? My favorite city in Brazil. It's hard to tell. I love São Paulo. I lived there for many years. People from São Paulo are amazing. But I think the most magical place for me is Rio because it has this amazing Brazilian energy. It has the mountains and the beaches. It's so beautiful. And I love Bahia. I haven't been to all places in Bahia, but I love it. I love Trancoso, Porto Seguro is so beautiful, amazing food, amazing people. So Salvador, Porto Seguro, Trancoso, Rio de Janeiro. Muito bom. Good question, Marcela. Brasileiros dançam samba? Not everyone, but a lot of people do because we love Carnaval. So a lot of Brazilians dance samba. Not everyone, of course. Ok. Muitos brasileiros não gostam de samba. Yeah, that's true as well. Should I learn to samba before I go to... You don't have to samba to know how to samba before you go to Brazil. Don't worry about that. You have fun anyway. Muito bom. Where are you from, Brazil? So usually I say that I'm from São Paulo because I lived most of my life there, but I was not born in São Paulo. I was born in the northeast of Brazil in a city called Teresina, state of Piauí. And I moved to the south when I was a kid and then to São Paulo. So yeah, I just consider myself to be a Brazilian. It's hard to tell where I am from. I consider myself more from São Paulo because I spent many years there and most of my friends are there. Okay, I don't see your question, Shivankur. If you could post it again. Which is the best university to pursue a master's with Portuguese language in Brazil? Well, I recommend my university, USP, University of São Paulo. I love it. It's beautiful. It's considered one of the best universities in Brazil and South America. So USP, University of São Paulo. It is a little bit difficult to get in, but not too difficult, I think. So take a look. But there are many other amazing universities in Brazil, but I'm not very familiar with the other ones. The one that I will know more is USP, University of São Paulo, Universidade de São Paulo. Is it true that people from the South speak German? Some people do, not everyone. Okay, there are small communities that speak German. Not everyone speaks German, so just people from where there were a large immigrants, a lot of immigrants from Germany. Okay, looking for more questions. Very good questions, guys. There are 2 types of samba. Actually, there are many more types. There are several types of samba. I don't know how many, but a lot. If you Google like tipos de samba, you see it's a huge list. Samba evolved a lot and influenced a lot of different types of samba that were created after. Okay. So I get this question a lot. Which accent would you say represents the standard Brazilian accent? It is hard to tell because if I say that the accent from Rio and São Paulo is the standard accent, it is not fair with all the rest of Brazil. Brazil is so big. But I would say that most people consider the accent from São Paulo and Rio the standard one because it's the one that we see most on television. But I really like Brazil is so big and diverse. I cannot say that one accent is more standard than the other. So I recommend that you don't worry about accents when you're learning Portuguese. You have your own accent, which will be a mix of Portuguese in your own native language. And when you go to Brazil, you make friends and you probably assimilate their accent. So don't worry about that. But most people would say Rio de Janeiro and São Paulo have the more standard accent. Muito bom. Tem todos os brasileiros sabem jogar futebol, é verdade ou é mentira? This is funny. I don't think that everyone knows how to play soccer, but everyone have seen soccer because it's everywhere, and most people have played soccer at least once because we play soccer in school, right, when we were little kids. So soccer is everywhere. It's the most common sport in Brazil, but not everyone plays soccer. So, but everyone for sure is familiar with soccer, knows most of the rules, not all the rules, but most of the rules. It's the most common sports. Very good questions, guys. Ok. Ok. Você gosta dos tribalistas? Eu adoro os tribalistas. Okay, guys, I think I answered most of your questions. What is the most misconception about Brazil? That's very interesting. I would say that people think that Brazil is only samba and carnaval and soccer. Well, that's not true. Brazil is very, very big. So if you watch this series that I created with the talking about the 5 different regions of Brazil, you see how rich our country is, right? How diverse, and that is not only carnaval and samba and not only beaches. We have a lot of other things in Brazil. So I think that's one of the most misconceptions, that people think that Brazil is all about carnaval and samba and caipirinha, and it's not exactly like that. However, we do like carnaval and parties, but it's not only that, right? Muito bom. So I think I answered a similar question, right, Sam? About Brasilienses, I'm not sure about how to answer that question. Ok, qual é a sua fruta favorita? I love maracujá as well. If you come to Brazil, you have to try maracujá. Maracujá in Brazil is so good. I think my favorite fruit is mangoes. Manga. Brazilian manga. Not every mango, but Brazilian mango is the best. Okay, guys, it was a pleasure to be with you today. This was fun. I answered a lot of questions. Thank you for having so many good questions. I hope this was useful for you. If you have not watched the series yet, watch it. You will learn a lot. And I'll be here again next week. However, next week I won't be available on Thursday. So next week our Q&A will be on Friday. Okay? So if you follow me, if you are on my newsletters, you will receive a notification about that. So I'll see you again next Friday, 12 p.m. New York time. Beijo, feliz ano novo, happy new year, beijo grande. Até semana que vem. I'll see you next week. Tchau, tchau.